parliament twice. Now onus is going to be on the centre to come out with a proper policy, because if these companies, viewers, can pay the publishers, can pay the news organizations in other countries where there are laws, why can't they do the same in India? Because they are using our news to earn money via ad revenues. And that's our big debate as well over the next few minutes. That's what we are going to be discussing. We have Vivek Bhargav, who is co-founder Profit Wheel, an industry leader, joining us on the broadcast. N.S. Napinai, who is an advocate, Supreme Court and cyber law expert, joining us on the broadcast too. We are also joined by Jiten Jain, who is director, in fact, Voyager Infosec. Thank you very much, all of you, gentlemen, for joining us here on Mirror Now. Vivek Bhargav, let me begin this discussion with you. You just heard the BJP Rajya Sabha MP, former Finance Minister of Bihar, of what should really be done in India on this matter. Your thoughts?
So I think the tech giants are large, right? So the total market cap of them is almost $5 trillion if you take Amazon, Google, Facebook, and let's say Apple. So they do control the advertising industry, but we have to understand the nuances of it. If we ask them, most of the publishers require some kind of discoverability of content. I've worked my entire life to get a lot of publishers to get featured in the news feed of Google, because a lot of consumers discover them, they come and read the entire article, and they make advertising revenue. So hundreds and thousands of publishers get revenue share because they don't have the sort of sales resources to earn their revenue on their own. So now the thing is that for discoverability, if we force them to pay, and even if they agree to pay a few of the large publishers, what happens to the thousands of smaller publishers who don't have the resources? So, and the way the technology is moving, I do agree with some of the things the Rajya Sabha member said, and BJP, that from some areas need to be moderated, and content and things has to be moderated. But I think asking the publishers to pay money for discoverability of their own content may be detrimental to the interest of thousands of publishers and may benefit a few, but that amounts that they get from them would be very limited. So that's my 2 bits, that I don't think the publishers should be, it should be mandated.
But Vivek Bhargav, let me just intervene there. You know, news generation is an expensive business. Would you agree to that? Traditional media employ, in fact, thousands of journalists at considerable expense for news gathering. And now what we have also seen, that retrenchment rate is going up as well. The financial health, of course, of many news organizations is not pretty good, and many publishers as well is not pretty good. So if these giants have become giants, if they have become so big and credible, it's also because of the news that they used to show to the people who are browsing them. Then why shouldn't they be sharing a fair share of revenue with the publishers?
So I do agree with you, but let's get this one point straight, right? If you look at news publishers, the cost of sales is very, very expensive. So for you to have a sales team, only few of the publishers can afford it. And in spite of that, they get substantial revenues from these tech giants. The challenge actually is the duopoly, right? When you have 2 people in the mix, then they dictate the terms. But if Twitter becomes more powerful, Amazon ads has become very, very large. So as the duopoly becomes an oligopoly, then automatically there'll be a commercial arrangement between the publishers and the tech giants. The challenge is right now, if not Facebook and Google, then what? And let's say that the publishers say, okay, pay us. And theoretically speaking, the tech giants say no, then what's the solution? So we are living in a marketplace.
Mr. Napinai, right? Then the question is, if these same tech giants can adequately compensate the publishers in other parts of the world where there are laws now, when they are asked to do so, why can't they do the same thing in India?
Absolutely right, Hina. And this is a law that is long pending. Now, in India, the issue becomes about whether we have existing laws which can help media houses to enforce this right away, or do they have to wait for a special law the way Australia has come out with now? The short response, without going into the nitty-gritties of it, is that yes, the copyright laws as on date itself help media houses. Now, there are two kinds of revenues, and Vivek is only addressing one aspect of it, which is the advertising revenue, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of what I heard him say. The debate today is not about advertising revenue, it is about whether media houses should be compensated for content which belongs to them. Copyright laws vests the rights, proprietary rights to content that media houses generate in the respective media house. So existing laws can be utilized. What the tech giants have been doing is using the safe harbor provision to claim that they are protected and that the only remedy available to media houses is for takedowns. The debate then moves on to what happens when consciously news is being displayed, and that amounts per se to a violation of copyright if that is being done by any platform. And therefore, on that last part, you already have laws which protect you, and it's all about enforcing your rights. In terms of third parties coming and sharing news media content on platforms, then the person who is sharing becomes liable. So for that, we need special laws the way Australia has gone. And if your question is, should we have laws similar to that? Yes, indeed, we should. Because it would be a natural expansion
What
of
kind of a
the
law should it
existing
be?
copyright law protection.
Okay. Ms. Napinai, now I want to understand from you, because you just heard the BJP MP as well, who's raised this issue at least twice in the parliament in last 9 months. He has urged the government to come out with some kind of a policy. What should the policy be like in your suggestion, looking at how the world is treating this?
A lot has been happening in terms of piecemeal legislation pertaining to social media. India is right now poised to, or it has been considering, a special law for social media platforms or content hosting platforms, to be more precise. I would say that there are a lot of issues, because if you look at what Sushil Modi ji raised itself, he spoke about this. You asked him specifically about this, media houses content being shared on social media platforms. But he also spoke about fake news, hate speech. What is the kind of revenue that should then remain within India for utilization for the benefit of Indian users, and a lot of other issues in terms of even user protection. For instance, there was a law that Australia passed more than 3 years back, which was meant to protect individual users, particularly women and children. We have been talking about it, and the Supreme Court order helps us today, and that's captured in the intermediary guidelines, but the law has still not been formulated. So we can't now look at piecemeal legislation the way the world has gone. We have all these precedents before us. So we definitely do need a specific and special social media law. And I would suggest that it should be comprehensive to capture all the issues and concerns that the government has felt is warranted to be addressed for India, with special emphasis in terms of user protection and protection against abuse or misuse, and where law already provides for protection like your proprietary rights.
Okay. Now, Jiten Jain, where do you stand on this entire matter? Because, when Indian Newspaper Society had urged Google to compensate them adequately, it had mentioned that at least 85% of total ad revenue should come to the publishers, and there should be some kind of transparency as to how exactly the revenue is being earned, how much is the revenue that a company like Google is making, and how much percentage is actually being shared with the publishers. Do you think something like that is possible, is feasible?
Should be done. I've been a great supporter of it, and I think I've been raising on all the platforms why India needs a separate, tech regulator which should control and regulate all internet-based platforms. You see, today, if you ask media houses to be compensated, why not compensate all the users whose data has been, being collected without their consent and being sold out for precise advertisements, and companies are making billions of dollars of revenue, and we as the people don't get anything. So I think it's a question of consent of people or organizations whose data is being collected, to whose content is being used. And it is so fair. Look at what Google is doing. They build a product called Google Maps, and they gave it free to the world for several years. And one find is 3 years back, they realized that, all the apps like Uber, and Ola and all these people have been using Google Maps for their navigation, based apps. And one day they got up and decided that, look, you have to share revenue because you are using our maps and your entire product economy is based on Google Maps for the product we have built. So you start sharing revenue. It is literally that, you ask at gunpoint because there is no other option for them. Then you build a platform called Google Play that only and all Android apps can only be downloaded from Google Play. It worked really well for 5 years. This year in the beginning, they decided that everybody who's purchasing anything on Google Play in-house app purchases, 30% has to go to Google. After a lot of controversy and opposition to it, they had to finally withdraw that order for the time being. Now, if you allow these companies to build monopolies, you will not be in a position to deal or negotiate with them. And that is why a regulator has to play a role to protect the rights of all users in the society as well as the organizations like media houses. Now, tell me one thing: if somebody starts a channel and just to make the channel popular, I start showing free movies of different producers without their consent and I make money, is it unfair or unjust for that producer to ask me to share some revenue? It is not right. If I open a bookshop and if I start selling copies of books of a publisher I have not taken no permission with, and that publisher comes and says that please give me some part of revenue, you're selling my work, is it unfair? Likewise, companies today, media houses, India Today, Times Group or Z Group, everybody is spending so much of money, right? People are earning here for their livelihoods, and you spend so hundreds and thousands of crores for 5 years, 6 years, and the other company like Google has made billions of dollars. And then what is so unfair to ask them to share a small pie of revenue? It may not be 85%, it may be 75%, 60%. And second thing you have to ask, what if they say no? Which Vivek asked. What if they say that, okay, from tomorrow in Google News, I will start showing all the news from other operators, but not from Times Group? Is it not manipulation of market media? What is the transparency in the ranking algorithms?
Vivek, will you like to respond to this?
No, what is the algorithm of Google that what decides which news will be published first and which news will be published on the last page? So I think there has to be complete transparency.
Don't you think in a scenario like this, we really need a regulator?
So actually, see, my view is monopolies are not created by anybody else other than the users, right? So when you get a product for free, then you are the product, right? So now whether it's WhatsApp, if theoretically speaking, if WhatsApp was a subscription service, Android was given license to hundreds of mobile operators almost for free, because there was very clear, right, that the model of Google has not changed for the last 20 years. All I'm saying is that if the users are getting a product for free, then there is going to be advertising revenues. And the total news revenues, we can calculate, right? If you just take the search revenues of Google.
It's interesting, Vivek, that you say that monopolies are actually created by users. So in a way, would you then not agree when I say that the credible content only that Google and Facebook started using has actually made them so big, has actually given them the authenticity that it enjoys today, that both these platforms in fact enjoy today?
Google became Google because of its search. Facebook became Facebook because of its social media and this ability to connect users together, right? So now the thing is that if you look at one section of that pie, which could be advertising from news publishers, there also it's mainly discoverability of content. And the fact of the matter is that there are 3 billion users of Facebook globally. Now these 3 billion users are not going to Facebook because of publishing content alone, right? They were engaging on Facebook, on their platform.
Jitin has a different point of view. Quick response, then I'll get the closing comment. Jitin, very quickly, I have very little time.
When Australia brought in the law, Google and Facebook accused Australian Parliament and Australian government of spreading misinformation. And any sane logic, if Google says, look, I am earning 100 rupees from the news, that is why I'll give you only 80. This is an absolute lie and facade. If Swiggy is earning, say, 1,000 crores by selling the food, the valuation of company is not 1,000 crores, it is 8,000 crores. So if Google is making only 100 crores from the news, the overall valuation of that entire portfolio is more than 10,000 crores. So the revenue has to be paid according to that, not from what you are earning. Otherwise, they'll say, I have invested so much, I have not earned anything. What will I give you?
Okay.
This is
Ms. Napi Naik, now I want to give you the last word. Then I have to wind up
And
this
I
debate.
think it's really
Yes.
short, Chris. Vivek may be right in saying that users create monopolies. It's not completely true because the monopolies then build and consolidate their monopolies further. But his argument is precisely why we need a regulator, because regulators break monopolies. Regulators are the ones who limit and restrict monopolies from abusing their dominant position. And irrespective of whether you thought that giving a service for free or not entitles you to then use the people or the users as the product, it is going to be the regulator who is going to come in to tell you what you can and cannot do with this free product.
So let's put it this
Vivek,
way.
5 seconds. Closing comment now. Completely out of time.
So I'll be very honest, right? I think we agree to disagree. I think the regulator, I'm sure, is needed, but the regulator cannot stifle innovation, right? There is a business model of tech giants, the way they make money.
Regulating is not the same
Right?
as
And
restriction. Vivek. Sorry to interrupt.
If Swiggy takes a certain percentage from the restaurants, it's restaurants' decision whether that this percentage is fair or not. If it's not fair, don't deliver through Swiggy, right? But you can't say, Swiggy, no, I'm sorry, you can't take this much percent. So it's your
But
choice.
at least,
Our publishers have a
Vivek, you
choice.
agreed to one point that India needs a regulator as far as these tech giants are concerned, as
What to
the other
regulate-
esteemed
what to
panelists were
regulate,
also
Hina,
saying.
So regulator
No,
can be like
you just said,
China.
no, I'm just
so it
saying that
can
you
be-
agree. I'm just saying, Vivek, that you at least agree that there is a need for a regulator. What that regulator is going to do, of course, that's something we'll debate once government says something on this particular issue. But I'm completely out of time. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us here on Urban Debate. Heading into another short break.